It is Fancy Ramen episode 88. It's October 14th. I'm Neil.
And I'm Scott.
You can listen to this on YouTube, Apple Podcasts or iTunes, Stitcher, and wherever else you find podcasts. So hopefully with the marketing of this episode, this is an indication that things are back on in like a somewhat regular schedule now that I'm hopefully not going to be working countless hours anymore.
Yeah, if you don't recognize this voice, that happens to be Neil. He was once the lead man and producer for our podcast, and he's finally returned after a long absence.
Yeah, hopefully no more 70, 80-hour work weeks. So I looked at the docket for last week, and it looks like you guys talked quite a bit about Absolver.
Yeah, I actually don't know if it took up a large portion of the episode, but we did chat at least somewhat more in depth about it than we had the previous time we talked about Absolver when it first released, which it's been quite a while since that's occurred. It had a big patch, and so Cookie and I just kind of talked about what that patch brought in, if anything, and then I griped about all of the things I didn't like about this Souls-like combat game.
Do you find that, is it just because the game doesn't execute the Souls-like mechanics as well as From Software's titles?
That's mostly it. Like, they don't have the same talent going into, say, level design or like navigation. The multiplayer is fun, but it's very empty in areas. And Dark Souls, which is known to be a particularly like opaque game as far as providing you with information, still does a much better job of educating players on how to play the game and some of the simple mechanics of the game more than Absolver has ever demonstrated to me. And I think it is all due to just like more NPCs that provide at least more valuable dialogue, even if it is somewhat obscure, and soapstone messages littered about. Like, the lack of those two items makes Absolver even harder to really like get an understanding of.
Does Absolver have like a plentiful amount of item description like Dark Souls does? Okay, because
no,
I just noticed that you left that out, and I was wondering if Absolver had that. That's really like what am I saying? I was about to say that's the unspoken catalyst of much of the story in Dark Souls, but no, I don't think it's unsung in any way now that I think about it. How has your last week been?
It's been pretty good. Besides, I think I was complaining to you earlier about dealing with my dog this morning. Just, I don't know. He's gotten something into him. It's been quite a bit of fun. I hung out with my dad and my grandpa while we worked on a like smoking, I think, 2 probably 5 to 8 pound pork butts for doing some barbecue later. What was that? That was Friday night into Saturday morning. And then Sierra and I went and saw a movie, which we definitely have to talk about. It is another Marvel classic, if you can guess.
Venom?
Yeah, Venom. With Tom Hardy and a spooky black symbiote.
So I take it you dislike this movie tremendously.
So actually, I'd just like to give you some basic stats on Venom. The two like most available resources for determining the quality of a film normally are Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic, which I prefer Metacritic over Rotten Tomatoes formula. Both of them put their scores for Venom somewhere in the 30% range. I think Metacritic gives it a Metascore of 35%, and Venom gets a tomato meter of 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. So both of them score this movie really low. However, on both of these, we can also see with the average, like with the standard users, there's a user score on Metacritic of 6.3, and on Rotten Tomatoes, the audience gave it 88% of the audience liked the movie.
Wow.
So there's a huge split between critical review of the film and people's like feeling of entertainment. And I can say that as much as I'd like to stray from the pack with a hot take, I totally think that I fall into the same category where, like, if you watch this movie with a critical eye, it's pretty terrible. But Tom Hardy acts his heart out in it. And the character writing for Venom specifically, the symbiote, and not Tom Hardy when he's encased by Venom, because that's the other thing is Venom is his own character in this. The space alien symbiote that infects Tom Hardy has his own personality and character, and Tom Hardy is just kind of the conduit in which Venom can express his powers and abilities in this iteration. Very much in the realm of like the Spider-Man and the Deadpool writing for superheroes. It's primarily very like quippy and funny dialogue that occurs when Venom's speaking. He's almost always delivering a line that is humorous in some way. So he is using Tom Hardy's character, Brock something or other. What is his name? Who cares? Eddie Brock. That's what it is. He's using Eddie Brock essentially as this weird mumbling straight man, like we know Tom Hardy to do in other films, as Venom's character essentially makes jokes and quips about, you know, can I bite their heads off? And Tom Hardy will be like, no, why would you want to do that? Pile of bodies, pile of heads. Like, he's just making these like kind of absurd comments in the middle of what is otherwise trying to be at least somewhat a serious film. And so I can see how critics can tear it apart because there's tons of plot holes, but start to finish, like it's relatively entertaining. And for a movie that's like almost 2.5 hours long, it doesn't feel that long or overdone.
Isn't there still some like massive elephant in the room with the fact that like they can't use Spider-Man in this movie, obviously?
So Sierra was talking to me about that, and I didn't realize that this was it says it's by Columbia Pictures, but I thought it was I'm pretty sure it's a Sony property within the Marvel universe, while the other Marvel stuff is all Disney property, correct?
Right. So they basically cannot have Spider-Man.
They did a really good job of keeping Spider-Man out of it by having it take place in San Francisco, which actually lends to some interesting car chases, because you don't see many San Francisco car chases because of those like crazy slant streets with the wild elevation change.
All right, we got to slow down here.
Yeah,
right,
no, but instead
up.
with the chase scenes in this, they're just ramping over and down those hills all the time. But yeah, they sequester Venom to San Francisco, and Eddie Brock in his background has been like chased out of New York. Like, he is not wanted in New York. So they even give reasons as to why he can't or wouldn't go back there. So I think they're trying to do a good job to sequester it. The other thing that Sierra and I noted is the other Sony Marvel properties, right, are like X-Men and Deadpool. And neither of they also don't seem like they'd make sense in any sort of interaction with Venom. So like Venom is still in its own, I guess, universe, or very detached from any of the others. Unlike the like overall Disney Marvel Cinematic Universe, where everything is supposed to have a relationship with one another, this is definitely a film that's built to be pretty much standalone.
So I don't care about spoilers, but for people who may care about spoilers,
nothing to spoil. It doesn't make any sense,
right? But I'm going to ask you a question, and like, just fair warning for anyone: if you want to watch Venom, you should probably watch Venom and then listen to this. Pause it now. Go watch Venom, then unpause.
They should know. They should know. I used free tickets to go see this movie. I don't know how I'd feel about it if I went and paid, $10 to $12.
Oh, so
viewing.
So Columbia Pictures provided you with the free tickets, and now you're giving a positive review. Great.
No,
unbiased.
These free tickets These free tickets came from a source that provided no bias to myself or Sierra when we watched the film. They were one from oh hey look, we have a visitor in the channel.
We may have Cookie joining us. Well,
Nice.
we'll cover that here
Cookie.
in a second. But
Yeah. If you don't want to hear any Venom spoilers, you've been warned. Go watch Venom.
Oh wait, speaking of which, Cookie, do you care about Venom spoilers?
No, I'm always a proponent of getting spoiled to things. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep.
So real quickly, one word answer. Is Venom the villain in this movie, ultimately?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
But is Venom the... Wait. Is Venom the main antagonist? No.
Ultimately, does Venom end up killing a family with his laser vision, or does he have to break the neck of the person that's about to kill the family with the laser vision?
No, Venom acts... I should... So if we're fine with spoilers, Venom's character makes no sense as far as what his motivations are from the start to the finish of the movie.
Okay.
He essentially does an immediate character 180 where he goes from being antagonist to anti-hero protagonist. Yeah, this is where critics have the ammunition to tear this film to shreds, is the way that most of the characters operate is completely nonsensical. Like, it's just incredibly unrealistic and like very weird transitions or like exceptions that these characters make for certain actions. Someone who would seem to exercise some sort of like ethical principles may do something that I would consider like definitely unethical moments later in order to advance the plot, and vice versa. Venom, a space creature that has like no reason to give a shit about anything that it's doing or any harm that it's causing, all of a sudden turns into the Grinch and his heart grows 3 sizes larger, which doesn't make sense because he should be eating Eddie Brock's organs. And like has a martyrdom moment in the film. And so it's utter trash the way that these characters interact throughout the script.
Interesting. Makes me want to watch it even more. Before I go crazy about my anticipation for Venom, though, Cookie, welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah.
Just to explain very quickly for the listeners, Cookie's currently got a power outage, although looking at our voice chat, it looks like you have light.
His lights are on. Yeah.
Nah, it's just bright as fuck.
It's daylight. Okay.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So that said, welcome to the podcast. Cookie, are you underneath the kotatsu?
Yes, me and the wife just got done playing Settlers of Catan Duel.
Oh, nice. I'm actually looking forward to playing a game of that this evening. Not the duel, but the standard version.
Cookie, why don't you tell us a bit about your week aside from losing power thanks to some winter storms?
I made an executive decision as my wife has been going through this entire kick of, I probably mentioned it already, parsing down and getting rid of shit. I am officially selling the HTC Vive and the PlayStation VR. I am also going to be selling my 3D printer and hoping to replace the HTC Vive and PSVR with a new headset.
Like the Oculus Rift, or are you looking at the Vive Pro or the Pimax?
Actually looking at the Oculus Quest.
The fuck is the Quest?
It's the all-in-one that they just introduced. Oh god, I'm gonna sit somewhere convenient for myself. It's a all-in-one wireless solution that they just introduced. It's gonna be like a midpoint between the Oculus Go and the Oculus Rift. And then there is a resin-based 3D printer that's on not Indiegogo. It's on something else. They've already come out with their product, but they've got it for like $250 rather than the $499 that it actually costs. So I don't print very big things, so I might as well get better quality small things. The week itself has been, just been looking forward to Call of Duty. So the weekend's been full of that, sans today.
So out of curiosity, is the fact that you're going with essentially a lighter, a less we'll say hardcore VR solution also an indication that your faith in VR is slightly dwindling?
No, it's so with the Oculus Quest, kind of the way I understand it, and how I'm kind of taking it, is it is the weaker of the thing. So for people who do want like the highest quality thing, they still definitely go with the Rift and the Vive. But I'm putting convenience over graphical quality in my decision making here. So that way it's going to be less about, oh yeah, it may not be like the highest quality rendering of things. Most games are going to be ported over to the Quest that are already on the Rift, but it's going to have the added convenience of I can set this shit out in my backyard and be good to go, not having to worry about having a full on high quality PC rig going everywhere with me. So when I go to Montana, I can go down a mountain with the Oculus Quest on, and instead of just dodging normal trees, I can be dodging virtual trees while there's a Star Wing behind me. X-Wing? X-Wing, yeah. That's a Star Wars thing, right?
Interesting.
But yeah, to answer your question. Oh, yeah?
It seems like the world is shifting on me. Are there like other new technologies? Do we have a new console coming out for Xbox and Sony now too?
Yeah, man. Whatever Xbox is doing in PlayStation 5, that's what all the news articles are hyping on right now.
Wait, you're being serious?
I am actually. The rumor mill is going abuzz with patents for the next console generation already.
Wow. I'm gone for a month and the whole world flips on a dime.
Well,
I mean, in similar...
Well, the last time you were gone...
Wait, what happened the last time I was gone?
Trump became president?
No, I've gone on business trips before, or since then. Anywho, though, I guess this maybe just best illustrates how, like, the past month has been for me, but this past week... The only thing I can really point out is that League of Legends World Championships has been going on, so the group stages. So at like 3 a.m. the games start. I've been waking up around 5 a.m. every day, 5 to 6, to go to work. So I'm usually listening to the play-by-play, and it's fucking hype. It's actually really exciting, at least as of this specific day. The West is actually making some big splashes in group stages, and hopefully that continues. And when I say West, I mean North America and Europe. I think I was really considering venturing further into VR after this busy period is over for me. So maybe we'll have to talk some more, Cookie, because I'm also thinking about like freeing up some space in the basement, specifically selling off my sound console. But yeah, the other thing that I don't think I've talked about is I now have a Gigablast for a gigabyte internet.
Ooh, got that
Wow.
gigabit?
Yeah.
Gigabyte or gigabit?
Gigabit. I don't think anyone does
Gigabit,
gigabyte.
probably.
So we technically still have some bottlenecks that we're working out right now. Like we don't have a physical connection from the router or the modem and the router upstairs to the router in the basement. So we're technically using the 5G band to connect the two. But even then, like I've noticed a drastic improvement on upload and download speeds.
You're a lot less choppy on Discord, that's for sure.
Oh, really? Well,
yeah.
I mean, I might end up being choppy at any point. In fact, my signal might even just drop entirely if we end up getting a power outage thanks to the snow. So let's not, let's find some wood, knock on that a few times. But yeah, because of that, I'm thinking about streaming very shortly, like as soon as things really start to slow down. And I'm building up like a small catalog of bullshit games I think would be fun to play in front of an audience. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'd love to watch that.
What were you playing? Sorry, you cut out there, Cookie?
I was going to say, do it.
Yeah, I have to come up with a great title for this set of streams because I think anyone watching the Fancy Ramen channel right now would be extremely shocked to see what I would start with. So
Neil, escape from Bronze League.
no, I'm never going to stream League. At least I don't think I would. Speaking of games, for that matter, what have you guys been playing this week?
So it is the official first week of Call of Duty. So I've just been playing that nonstop since Friday. Wish I took off work. Wish my power was working. I would have much rather skipped on you guys for that rather than no power and board games. But it has been a blast. There are some weird things that are going on with Call of Duty at this exact moment. With the these are things like a lot of the normal Call of Duty guys, Drifter, Prestige, they're all like reporting on. With the launch of the new Call of Duty, if you pre-ordered any of like the special editions, it came with COD points, which are generally used for the supply drops. No supply drops in this game. The rumor mill is currently going on with something called like a supply progression system. So it's going to work closer to a Fortnite system. As you level up, you unlock tiers of loot and things. But so, yeah, no supply drops. So no loot boxes basically in this game as of right now. The connections have been very stable. One weird thing that they actually did, usually when you play a game's beta and you go into the actual game, if it is a multiplayer game, say like a League of Legends or something, you kind of see the map and the map doesn't change, right? Mm-hmm. With this new one, the actual, like, they opened up more lanes and opened up more areas. So that way, even once you played a level a lot, there were still more routes that you could start learning and taking. The various modes are still a blast. I don't really have to talk that much about everything because I went really in depth during the actual beta. I will say now that I got a chance to play hardcore, it's not balanced for hardcore modes. You can really tell that a majority of the YouTubing streaming community who kind of help push the direction of Call of Duty COD, they are all pretty much doing it for the, if I didn't cut out there, they're all doing it for the core game modes because like some of the score streaks. So if you get the, there's like, you can call a squad of people to come down and fight with you. They don't die in 1 to 2 hits. They definitely still take all the bullets, which means they can shoot you once in hardcore.
As much as a player character? Is that the...
Yeah. So players, they take 1 to 2 bullets. That score streak, you need to empty a couple of clips into them before they actually go down.
Interesting.
So some balance tweaks needed. Besides that, haven't been playing much. Besides exploring more of the mini games that is Mario Party. And that's been my gaming this week.
Is Mario Party worth the name Super Mario Party?
So far, maybe. I will say...
Oh, I was going to say, somebody's not playing on 2 Switch mode then.
Correct. Once we get the second copy and we play on 2 Switch mode, then I'll tell you if it's super. But their implementation of the ally system is spot on. It's a you land on certain areas and it lets you pick up a second character to follow behind you. You could use their special dice, and there are certain mini games that allow you to use your allies. So if you're using Peach, you've got Bowser, Mario, and 6 other people on your team. You've got that much more of an advantage for these mini games. It's nice.
Well, what about you, Cookie? Or Cookie, Jesus. What about you, Scott?
You mean Scott. I just love how interchangeable we are to you, Neil.
I don't see color, so you guys are basically interchangeable.
Yeah. You have a couple of cues outside of that, though. You can look for hair or glasses. One of us is sometimes in a sexy bathrobe.
Oh, not today. Haha. I took it off.
Nice. Let's see. My gaming I haven't done a huge amount, Neil, besides work so hard to catch up with you on finishing Octopath Traveler. I have been breaking my back trying to get through this game. I'm at that point where the strategy that you employed of just getting the experience multipliers from Bewildering Grace is turning more into reviving bosses near the end of the fight with Bewildering Grace. So the game is, if anything, extending for me, trying to follow your formula for success. I've been playing a ton of Rimworld with my free time as well, which is a game that I have mentioned on the podcast maybe once before. It's been in alpha for about 5.5 years, and it actually releases it'll probably have been released by the time this podcast comes out, because it is October 17th that it officially exits alpha and is a full-fledged game.
Challenge accepted.
Okay.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, I'm still putting my money on the game coming out first. I don't know if I've explained a huge amount about it, but it is a sci-fi survival kind of macro management game in which a lot of the success is still based upon those like FTL style decisions under pressure, as a storyteller AI essentially throws softballs and curveballs at you with random events that happen in the game, and a very, very deep system for essentially building your colony and interactions of colonists, multiple options to do with construction or community / other planetary inhabitants interactions, animal taming, research and development of technology. The game is one of those in which you essentially have kind of free reign in this sandbox that scales in difficulty as you move further and further along, where you can kind of build your own goals from point to point. But I think the ultimate goal of the game is to get off-world by building a spaceship or making it to a spaceship that has been hidden on the planet in need of like slight repairs. It is a game that I cannot recommend for anybody who's looking for a casual experience, though, because even on the like chillax mode that they have with like party building and whatnot, you still have the difficulties of your colonists and characters causing fights with each other and being near mental breaks at certain points in time where they'll do erratic behaviors if they reach a breaking point. But it's a very exciting game that I think really is one of the best implementations of a storyteller AI I've encountered in gaming in a while. Kind of on par with that of what series is it? The Left 4 Dead series, where you're kind of always being put into, if you're playing on the like standard or harder difficulties, you're always being put into some sort of gameplay that is providing a challenge.
Like Left 4 Dead, the 4-person shooter, right?
Yeah. Left 4 Dead, the 4-person shooter, for instance, is always like taking account of how much health your party has, depending on how many zombies they throw at you, or where your ammo level is at, if you find an ammo stockpile or not. If you're just crushing through things, then you'll be facing more specialized zombies. And if you're just barely hanging on, maybe an area where 3 witches would spawn now only has 1.
So I knew that Left 4 Dead was adaptive in that way. Like, don't they call it like the director mode or something that they implemented?
Yeah, but the director mode is a storyteller AI. Like, it's the same principle where the AI is responding to make sure that your characters or that the player is never too comfortable.
I didn't realize that that's what Rimworld did too.
Rimworld has 3 different AI that they use. One of them is Cassandra Classic, which is based upon the most balanced AI format. There's Phoebe Chillax, which is for people who want to do a lot more of the colony building and deal with less random events like raiders attacking them, or a like ancient mechanoid super being coming out of hibernation and attacking their colony. And then there's Randy Random, who is an AI that literally just throws whatever the next random generated sequence is going to be at your colonists, which that one's very difficult because I've had it where we've just landed on a like new location in the game, and a like Mad Max pack of bandits come up with like grenade launchers, and we have a hunting rifle and a plasteel knife to fight them off. Like, there are multiple types of storyteller AI, but each one of them follows essentially a principle in which I think the main two, Cassandra Classic and Phoebe Chillax, you can adjust kind of the difficulty of how hard they hit at first and at what frequency, but they do begin to adapt over the continuation of a longer and longer timeline, while the random one is just throwing random events at you at a certain, I guess, speed in game time.
Have you had anyone create a work of art yet? Or recently,
Yeah, I've had
probably?
I've had some great works of art. I've had some sarcophagi that depict the time that two of my colonists fought each other and one of them bit the toe off of the other one. And that was immortalized on their grave. That was adorned with, one of the characters was literally covered in intestines, apparently, in the depiction. It's a game that has a lot of like fun character to the randomly generated like art pieces and like character bios. The character bios are very deep on the skill sets that they have, and also the I guess character traits. So not only do they have different skills, but some of them can have old scars or wounds from previous things, or they can have dreams of being transhumanist, or they could be ascetic and don't like to live in a luxurious area, or psychopathic, where they don't care about the other colonists and have like a negative effect, but you can have them sleep in a room with a dead body and be undisturbed by it. Like, there are so many weird interactions that happen in this game because of its like deep complexity, that it just feels like this endlessly fun sandbox of infinite possibilities, in the way that I always have enjoyed my like randomly generated roguelikes to do. Similar to FTL, Spelunky's kind of like that. The dungeon design is always somewhat different within a pattern, and Rimworld feels like one of those games where you can never anticipate or make a measured guess or bet on what's coming down the pipeline next, because there are just so many elements at play.
I've always been like somewhat interested in that game. Maybe I should check it out when it officially hits gold or official release.
Yeah, it'll come out really soon. I got it as a birthday present, so that was one of the things that I think finally got the game into my library, because $30 is quite a bit, but I think I've already put in more than $30 worth of time on this game.
So it's another instance where the developers or the creators of the media give it to you for free, and then you have to talk it up. No, I'm betting Matt bought it for you, correct?
Paid interest. Huh? What'd you say?
I'm betting Matt bought it for your birthday.
Actually, no. My closest childhood friend Ian got it for me for my birthday. In exchange, I got him I lucked out a while ago and got to meet Primus backstage when they were here in Missoula. And he's a bassist, so he's super into Les Claypool, and got him a signed vinyl copy of their newest album. So I think it was a pretty fair trade.
Along with a freshwater bass.
Yeah.
I don't know. Les Claypool's weird as fuck, so.
Yeah, he is. For anybody who doesn't know who I'm talking about, Les Claypool is the guy who also made the South Park intro, and it doesn't sound that different from the music that he makes for Primus.
I never realized he made the opening to South Park, but that makes total sense
You can
now.
definitely hear it though. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Huh.
Weird dude. Weird group. But a good gift nonetheless.
Did you know, weird bit of knowledge, I think it was Metallica? Oh God, now I have to look it up.
Okay.
There is a tall tale that Les Claypool tried to join Metallica or some other bands,
And they said no.
and they basically he wanted to try and become, he wanted to try and join whatever band it is. Oh, actually, this is straight from the Wikipedia. In 1986, after the death of Metallica bassist Cliff Burton, Kirk Hammett, the guitarist of Metallica, encouraged Claypool to audition for Metallica as Burton's successor. Claypool said he jokingly asked the others if they wanted to jam on some Isley Brothers tunes during the audition, a reference to his little experience in the thrash metal scene. Hetfield remarked that Claypool was not offered the job because he was too good and should do his own thing.
Which is believable, I guess. Les Claypool is probably one of the most impressive bassists I've ever seen perform. Actually, he is the most impressive bassist I personally have seen perform. But he's a fucking weird dude. So I could also see how they're like, yeah, no, you're so great. You should do your own thing. Like, this dude is just bananas.
Does that top it off for your games this week?
Yeah, I mean, that's about it. I tried playing some Fallout, Far Harbor DLC. That game is, I don't know. I can't get back into it. Even with, really fresh content, I am having a very hard time feeling any sort of motivation to play that again. And yet I'm feeling also the tug of nostalgia for when Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, even though I hated Skyrim. I'm in a very weird conundrum right now when it comes to those games.
Proud of you.
So musicians and artists alike aside, I did manage to play a little bit of video games over the past couple weeks since I was gone last. The first thing that jumps out to me is apparently The Messenger is also a Metroidvania. So that's the game I was talking about earlier that kind of felt like a more fluid, controllable Ninja Gaiden. Then it jumps into it starts 8-bit, then it jumps to 16-bit, then it becomes a Metroidvania. So that game's actually really, really fun. And it also keeps track of how many times you die, because the mechanic is that whenever you die, this little magical creature teleports you before you would actually kick the bucket. And in payment, the in-game currency, he ends up taking it from you until he deems it's enough. But every time you die, there's a little dialogue cutscene with him, and he tells you, it's really short, not really painful, but he'll usually tell you things like how much money he's collected, or insult your plane and say oh, I bet you meant to jump there and not hit that, or you zigged when you should have zagged, right? He also tells you how many times you've died in some of the dialogues, and I have died 186 times. And I died a combined 30 times at the last boss I hit, if that's any indication.
Oh.
I also managed to potentially break my keyboard while playing that game. So
is it because of the ribbing that you get after a loss? I mean, think how bad it would be if you got a Rossetti style lecture where you have to wait 5 minutes to play the game again.
Well, I wasn't banging my keyboard or anything like that, but the keyboard controls for this game are stupid, and I don't think there's a way to reassign or reset any of the keys without going into configuration files. Are
they awkward on your hands? Or?
Yeah, they're extremely awkward if you want to play it like a console, or if you would normally set up your controls for an emulator, we'll say. WASD is your movement controls. Jump is spacebar, which so far, so good. The issue, though, is that your grappling hook is on Alt, your slash, which in some cases is the button you constantly want to be pushing, is Control, and Shift is your shuriken. So
yeah, that does feel terrible moving my fingers across the keys for that.
Yeah.
You can either jump or grapple. You can't do both at the same time effectively. And if you're mashing Control at any point in time, then it makes shifting to grappling hook or hitting Shift also difficult, if not impossible.
So at some point in time, I think I hit the Windows key. And in doing so, Again, I don't hit that key too often, so I don't really know what happens. But basically, the Windows key became stuck in a state that it was always being pressed, despite the mechanical key itself only, being depressed once.
Like a sticky key.
Yeah, but sticky keys are disabled
Maybe you
too.
mash shift too much. Oh, okay.
So, I was able to disable that key with this keyboard using Logitech software, but I still have yet to actually go back in and see if I can figure out exactly what's wrong. But I think that's what's wrong. And it's kind of a bummer. This is my first mechanical keyboard, so maybe it's time to get a Ducky instead.
What's that?
A
for
Ducky is
the uneducated.
It's just a brand of mechanical keyboards. They seem pretty reliable and pretty popular. These are using the Romer G switches too, which are proprietary Logitech switches, and that could also be potentially why it's failing on me so soon after buying it. That all aside, though, the other game I've been playing that I've found particularly interesting is called Tokyo Dark, and this is a mystery thriller horror game where you play as a detective that is trying to more or less is trying to unravel this mystery around a haunted mask and the murder of her partner. The game is fairly, we'll say, clumsy when it comes to its controls and its animations, but where I find some of its shortcomings, I find more than enough upside from the story and the interesting mechanic at which they use what they call their spin system, which is an acronym for sanity. Oh God, what is P now? Sanity, professionalism, I is investigative ability, and N is neurosis. So the certain things you do throughout the game can lower your sanity or raise your sanity. It can lower your your ability to perceive or investigate things, raise your neurosis or lower that, as well as your professionalism. So certain things if your professionalism's on the low end, you might be able to do more rash things like shoot a lock off of or shoot a lock off of a door or stuff like that. If you have higher professionalism, people may respect you more and offer you alternative solutions to otherwise reckless approaches to a specific scenario. And then from what I gather, I believe your sanity meter plays an effect on how many little jump scares and hallucinations you experience as you're playing the game, because there's definitely a level of supernatural ghost bullshit happening all around you as you progress the story, which it's interesting to me because I really like if that's actually what it's doing, where the lower your sanity is, the more you get weird jump scare things. I love how the game has essentially enabled me to, at certain times, choose between having a less perceptive character and having more sanity. Because I'm not good with jump scares and I'm not good with really, horror-y things. So you can take your medication, which lowers... And this is at times maybe a clumsy way to define, sanity is probably not the best term to use here, but your medication raises your sanity and lowers your investigative stat. So I've played it through to completion once, and I got a pretty bad ending, and immediately upon beating the game, you unlock the ability to actually save and load, which before it was more like a Telltale's game where, you just continued to play through the game and whatever choices you made were final. I think there might be some loading element to Telltale games, but so you unlock those abilities, and you also unlock New Game Plus, which immediately upon playing New Game Plus, there are instances of dialogue where it seems to indicate that the detective is somewhat aware of this feeling of deja vu as you play the game. And already important conversations I've had with characters that are not necessarily normal, or as I would say are linked to the supernatural shit, have changed dramatically as a result of this New Game Plus loop. So I'm really excited to see what else this game has to offer. Any type of game that allows... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, how long would you say that the initial or the original run from start to finish on the story is?
4 hours or 5 hours, maybe.
Okay, so it's a short enough game where you could theoretically assume that because of the short amount of time for a campaign, it is kind of designed for multiple playthroughs.
Yeah, absolutely. And the game does a good job of like foreshadowing what choices may be bad as well. Like, I don't think this is a big enough spoiler. It definitely seems like I got a shortened playthrough as a result of it. So this haunted mask, without getting into the specifics, at some point in the game, you get the choice to go and take it to like a Miko shrine maiden to have it purified. And me being like as adverse as I am to like supernatural shit, I'm like, obviously this is the best choice. Why do I want to get my character killed by trying to pursue her dead lover / partner who is obviously dead because we saw his body? He got fucking knifed in the throat. This game is obviously trying to lead me down some dark, deep rabbit hole inside of some supernatural hell replacement realm, trying to save someone. They even mention Izanagi and Izanami, which is like a reference to it's kind of like the story of Orpheus, where a dude goes to hell to retrieve his wife. And in Izanami and Izanagi's case, Izanami is like decayed and stuff when he finally gets to see her, and Izanagi runs the fuck out of hell to get away from her. So it's like, that is obviously what's going to happen, or so I'm thinking. I get the chance to purify the mask, I do it, and I get basically a bad ending as a result to it. So, but like there's a lot of foreshadowing that seems to indicate that the detective thinks it's a bad idea to purify the mask, and I chose to do so anyways. I guess what I'm getting at is I'm glad that the game allows you to commit yourself into bad decisions, or like commit yourself into different mindsets. Whereas a lot of narrative games like The Letter, for instance, which we tried to play a while back, really only has one solution, and no matter how differently you play the game, you go to that same solution. So, fun game. I'll hopefully have it finished by the time we do the next podcast.
So, when you also, one more question about that New Game Plus, are you essentially continuing a character? Because you were saying like you're glad that your character doesn't have as high of a perception as possible. Are you continuing with the same character, or did you decide like New Game Plus, I'm going to make my guy blind, can't be scared by any jump scares?
Well, so the with my New Game Plus, I felt like I was playing my character pretty well. Like I said, I chose for them to not be as perceptive, but I was actually able to get a pretty high sanity level and keep my investigative stat like close to max. And I think it's just because like whenever I found ways to get higher sanity, the game like doesn't let you abuse it, but like it also rewards you for being persistent at times. Like I kept taking my medication to the point where I felt like I might be getting close to overdosing from my medication, because the character started saying that like, oh, I'm starting to feel drowsy. And immediately when that came up, I was like, nope, no more. It seems like food and other like worldly things within the game can help your sanity as well. Like finding ways to like ground your character in reality around you, so to speak. And also starting to come to grips with like things that you should obviously not investigate or look at. Like if there is something that is grotesque and you don't think it's necessarily related to the case, then maybe you don't look at it. Because if you do, it might not help you, and it might just drop your sanity as a result.
So you avoid looking at the dirty dishes in your sink.
Yes. And it's a lot of like really little dumb things, I guess you could say, that the game rewards you for, like talking to your cat. Like if you talk to your cat, your neurosis raises, or it lowers, excuse me. I think lowers? Okay. And neurosis is basically the multiplier for sanity. So if you have high neurosis, that means you lose sanity at a higher rate, and it's harder to regain your sanity. And if your neurosis is low, it's easier to regain your sanity. So
it's a multiplier, sort of.
Yeah, but I also haven't
it's a threshold, I guess.
And that neurosis also is impacted upon repeating your actions needlessly. Like if you keep going back, if you're trying to figure out a puzzle and you keep talking to a person, I say puzzle, I don't actually mean like a jigsaw type puzzle, but like if you're trying to get past a point in the game and you can't figure it out and you keep talking to a person, your neurosis raises upon like with those types of actions. So
that's a pretty full lineup of games and activities for an otherwise 80-hour week.
Yeah, I've learned that if I just wake up at 5 a.m., go to work and get there at 5:30, I can get home around like 8 or 9 p.m. and then I have like an
Just
hour
enough
or two.
time to sleep. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can't imagine that.
I mean, it only
Well, Neil,
happens.
the home stretch is coming.
Yeah, exactly. This will hopefully be the last week I have to work any significant amount of overtime. So, I don't know if there's anything else that comes to mind right now that is topic worthy.
Well, if that's it, you can always send a digital care package to Neil specifically, but the other two of us, if you're feeling particularly generous, at the email podcast@fancyramen.com.
And tell a friend. Again, you can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, as you could just infer from that last line, and many other podcast search engines. I'm Neil.
I'm Scott.
And I'm Cookie.
And this was Fancy Ramen. Have a great week, everybody.